everyone, I'm Mike.
And I'm Jose.
So today we're going to be talking about this lawsuit, the Keller Williams lawsuit that just got settled, well not settled, got the jury sort of voted on yesterday.
I mean, it's becoming a dead horse that's going to be beaten to death, but because that verdict was just announced where they awarded $1.7 billion to sellers who were harmed or damaged in this effort by realtors
1.78, by the way, you missed a whole $80 million there. That 8 is important.
What they've determined is, realtors came together to conspire to fix commissions as a whole, and pretty much obligate the sellers to pay a compensation to a buyer's agent when the seller felt that they didn't necessarily have to pay anything at all to have their property marketed to other realtors and buyers out on the open market.
Yeah, so my limited understanding, and neither of us are attorneys, but we are very familiar with this case. My thing is there are 3 different issues. The first issue is that in the MLS, it requires that the seller pays a buyer's agent at least $1 to participate in the MLS system. I don't think that's right. That could be part of the antitrust.
They are making some changes right now where now listings can be entered into the MLS for no fee at all to the seller. Originally, the way that was created was in order to share listings on an open market amongst listing agents and buyer's agents, they had to be some type of compensation offered to cooperating brokers so they could then bring their buyers and be compensated for their efforts.
Yeah, so easy fix, verbiage change. Second thing is that we had a recent policy change that I think may have motivated this whole thing, where if people had pocket listings, the National Association of Realtors was trying to stop pocket listings to watch out for consumers. They thought that the listing agents that were doing that weren't looking out for the best interest in the consumers, and they stated that if you take a listing, it has to be put into the MLS within a certain period of time.
To make it available to all interested parties, not just a small select few individuals who may have been told about it or maybe drove by a sign.
But on top of that, they had a disclaimer where you could have a disclaimer where you could take the listing and not put it in for like a month. But they added a new policy that said if you do any marketing of this on your own, on your Facebook page, YouTube page, flyers or anything like that, you must put it in the MLS. So it's literally telling the seller that if your realtor markets it anywhere, it has to go in the MLS, and if it goes in the MLS, you have to pay a buyer's agent, even though it's $1, right? So that's the other thing, and the other thing was the collusion between brokers. The lead attorney for this whole class action suit stated that the commission started at 6% and work its way up from there, and that the whole industry is in a collusion with the 6% going up, and we know that's just blatantly
not true.
False.
I've been in situations before where I've been at the local board of realtors or National Association of Realtors meeting where maybe a member of the National Association of Realtors did start to ask questions or use specific numbers when talking about commission, and immediately it's shut down. They're like, nope, stop, we cannot talk about commission in a group of brokers or agents. Otherwise, that's colluding or price fixing. So never in my 20 years of real estate have I ever been in a room with other brokers and we started having a conversation about commission, because when that starts to happen, then you could
be perceived as collusion.
It goes beyond our ethics that we're guided by. We can't talk about commission structure with other brokers in the same room. It just can't happen. It's a big no-no. So my main thing is, let's go back to agents who are taking these listings and they said, seller, I'm more than happy to sell your house. We charge, X amount of money to sell your listing. I'll put a sign in the yard. And before that agent actually put it in the MLS, they already got 5 calls just off the sign being put in the yard.
Yep.
And now if a buyer says, hey, I'm interested, I want this property, they say, sure, would you like me to write an offer for you? And then that agent says, well, I have an agent that's representing me. That listing agent could say, well, we're not offering that in the MLS. There's no offer of compensation. And that's why they made it so pocket listings, as soon as it was advertised or marketed, whether a sign in the yard or put anywhere on the internet, had it now be put on the MLS and made available to all interested parties or any buyers that were ready, willing, and able to purchase.
It was good intentions, but I don't believe the attorneys or whoever made that policy really thought it through, because to me it is a bona fide antitrust issue and probably where this whole lawsuit started.
Sure.
So they take that away, or they have a disclaimer
on the listing agreement
where you don't hey, I'm doing it, but I don't want it in the MLS, where a seller can agree to that. And their agent can market it wherever they want without putting it in the MLS, and also that you can put it in the MLS with $0. That should cover that issue. And the other one is the collusion that everyone's getting 6% or higher. I know that's not true. I've charged a lot less.
Most agents will actually discount their commission.
Yeah.
So if a seller, usually when you walk into a seller's home for a listing appointment, they typically will say, hey, listen, I like you, I want to work with you, but I don't want to pay 6%. And then they usually say the number before we even present it to them.
Yeah.
So for whatever reason, our common number, whatever market that you're in, is usually known about by sellers. And they usually will say, well, I don't want to pay X. Can you negotiate your commission? In most cases, especially in our market here in Central Florida, most agents do negotiate their commission.
Yeah.
And they'll say, well, I'll do it for this much, or I'll do it for 5 or 4.5, whatever it is. All sellers and buyers do understand that real estate commissions are negotiable.
Yep. So
It's a fact.
it's completely negotiable. I've done a deal for $2,000, but I knew that it was a relatively easy deal. Everything was already set. I just had to help with the paperwork. No big deal. You didn't tell me I had to list it for a specific percent. And even the broker does have, each individual broker could say, hey, if you're a specific agent, we need a minimum of this specific percentage, but you just can't be colluding with other brokerages with that as well.
And even when we're doing this video and I'm saying specific numbers, it makes me feel uncomfortable just because we're taught as a general rule
not to talk about
don't
numbers.
publicly talk about a certain percentage of commission, because then when other brokers hear what this broker's charging and then they hear what that broker's charging, they'll try to align their commissions to match their competitors.
Yep.
So we may even bleep some of this out, but I want everyone to understand that in the past, as things have happened or people have been sued or class action lawsuits have come about, we've had to make changes in our industry, changes to our contract or adjustments or modifications. And I feel that our listing contracts will be modified. So there's a really big disclaimer on the listing agreement that clearly states, seller, commissions are negotiable. You are not required to pay any specific commission for the sale of your home or for compensation brought to you for agents that bring you a buyer. And then that way the seller signing this agreement is fully aware and understands that they can negotiate the price and terms that are presented to them by the listing agent. And of course, we both know that sellers already know that, because in our market, we never get a seller when we go on a listing appointment that says, sure, I'll pay whatever you ask. They always say, well, let's talk about that. Can you do less? Can we do better? They know it's negotiable. So for this attorney to do a class action lawsuit and say that all sellers are ignorant and they don't understand that commissions are negotiable and they've been duped by all realtors all over the nation, it's kind of a tough pill to swallow.
And they were forced to sign the agreement that specifically says
Nobody
what's
forces
going on.
a seller to sell their home and pay a commission. What they should have asked this attorney is, attorney, have you ever had to sell a house? Have you ever agreed to pay a commission to your agent? Did you negotiate that commission? I think that would have been a great question to ask that attorney. And on top of that, what makes me feel bad about it is I've actually been involved with a class action lawsuit against a bank, a big bank that was making false accounts show up. Anyway, it was a huge billion-dollar case. And I signed the petition because I wanted to be part of that class action lawsuit, and I got a whole $2.86.
But
the people that make the money on this are these attorneys.
Here's the kicker. They're saying that we're in collusion because it's 6% and above, and we know that's not true. But attorneys, don't they get like 33% of everything? So why aren't they suing themselves for that 33%? That's the set standard for attorneys. We know it's not a set standard, just like ours is not a set
technically
standard.
It should be negotiable.
You never mentioned what our minimum is for our 80-20 agents, and we do have a minimum for agents that we get a percentage of. But for our 100% agents that have a dollar figure, they can pretty much do whatever they want and charge whatever they want. The reason why we have a limit for the 80-20 is because we get a percentage. We get a percentage of what they make. So if they go down to like nearly nothing, we get nothing. With the 100% agents, we always get something. We always know we're going to get, we know we're going to get that. But with our 80-20, if they go down to, hey, we're only going to charge you $300, then we only get 20% of that $300, and then we're losing money there. So there is a minimum for people that are on their percentage. That's the reason why there is. And broker level, I think there's nothing wrong with that, as long as you're not including with other brokers and saying, let's come with a set.
Correct.
Which we don't.
Which it doesn't have.
Ours is much lower than what you said of our
And
minimums.
it gets to a point where it's hard to run a business and provide a service to the general public. And if there's not many brokers providing a service to many buyers and sellers, then what it does is it whittles it down to just 3 big giant companies in our industry. And that's when we have price setting. Because if 3 companies run the entire industry, it's you go with option A, B, or C. But now you have hundreds of thousands of real estate companies you could choose from, and the prices range, the commissions range depending on who you hire. So what they need to realize is, unfortunately, these attorneys in these class action lawsuits, these are the ones unjustly enriching themselves and making a bulk of the income from these lawsuits, when the victims, these sellers, aren't really going to get really what's due to them if they feel anything is due to them for going into a contract and agreeing in writing that they would provide compensation for the sale of their home.
I do want to mention the other thing they talk about, saying that in other countries they do it a different way. I'm very familiar with other countries. I'm an immigrant to the United States, and the country that I was at had it to where only the listing agent got 5% typically, right? Probably also negotiable, but that was the going rate, 5%. But the listing agent and the listing agent only was the one selling it. It confused me for like when I was trying to sell it.
There were no buyer's agents or representation.
There's no buyer's agent. So the buyer would have to actually go to that specific listing agent. That listing agent had to advertise it. There was no MLS system. There was no Zillow or anything because there was nothing like that existed. So you had to rely on that one agent to advertise your home. And if that agent wasn't advertising your home properly, it wasn't going to get sold. If the right people weren't getting in front of it, it wasn't going to get sold. There wasn't a group of, here's 500 homes available. The buyer had to go to each agent and say, hey, what do you have available? And they missed a specific agent. They missed a home. And it took forever. It took like 7 months to sell this home, and I think we got a lot less for it than what it was worth because there just wasn't, like right now in our area there's 21,000 realtors. Do you want your one listing agent to be the only person selling it, or do you want 21,000 realtors and all their buyers and all their influence and all their social media to be finding you a buyer? I much prefer, when I'm selling my house, I have no issue giving 2.5–3% to a buyer's agent because I know it's worth it and they'll get my house sold faster and for a better price.
You're a seller willing to offer compensation for that exposure.
And I'm sure that attorney who is doing this and making a fortune out of it also has no problem doing it on his own sale. That would be my opinion and guess.
If someone was going to list his house, I think he might think differently about the whole situation.
Like, oh, well, I'm not going to offer a buyer's agent and then see what,
It is what it is. But like, for instance, even like if you go to the UK, you don't have to be licensed to sell real estate. You can have your next door neighbor sell your house for you, and there is no rules or there's nothing governing how real estate is traded. So I'd rather be in a situation where we have rules, we have certain set of standards, and we try to do the best we can with the National Association of Realtors and the MLS and in the way that we're governed, and we do business in an ethical standard. But unfortunately, there's 8 jurors somewhere in, what was it? Missouri, that made a decision that affected the entire state and every agent who can transact business in that state, when we don't know if these jurors have ever been in a situation where they had to be compensated through,
to be fair, there may be a legit antitrust issue with the dollar requirement and stuff like that.
Well, but you remember, antitrust was developed to stop large conglomerates or large business trusts from taking over and monopolizing a market. This necessarily I don't see it's an antitrust issue, because this isn't saying that there's one big real estate company that controls everything. It's more saying that the sellers want freedom to negotiate the commissions. And this attorney, they already have freedoms to negotiate commissions.
This attorney called us all cartels, like that we're a cartel, but people can go and list their home. There's plenty of their services that
flat fee service where you can list your house for $300 on the MLS.
So we're not fixed. There's no way that we're all colluding in a specific price. It just isn't reality.
Yeah, I mean, maybe the other side had poor representation. Who knows?
Yeah, they say they're appealing and that they have a good case. It seems like everything I'm reading is that there is a good case to made on the appeal. Maybe they weren't prepared. Maybe the attorney had videos of specific people saying 6% higher and not that it's negotiable, and that
the one video from that one broker doesn't represent the entire body of all realtors across the nation.
But unfortunately, the jury didn't have something to oppose that. Like, hey, here's contracts where we're listing for $1,000 and we're only offering 1% to a buyer's agent, or whatever it may be. If the jury didn't see that, then maybe this is the issue. We weren't there. We're
honestly,
not attorneys.
It's still up in the air. We're not involved in the legal system. We don't understand. We just know how this affects our business
and our consumers,
that we work with, and the agents that work with and for our brokerage. So yes, it does affect our industry. Things may change, and that's why we're going to discuss with you guys in another video how to properly list your buyers the same way you list your seller.
Using a buyer's broker's agreement. A lot of people are fearful of using a buyer's broker's agreement, but that's an easy way to resolve this.
Seller pays the seller, the buyers pay their buyer's representation.
The only issue with it is that if there's a first-time home buyer, they may be hurt by that, where they don't get representation because they can barely afford the 3.5%. So if you're asking another, let's say 2% for representing a buyer on a first-time home buyer, they don't have that 2%. They're going to go to the listing agent. The listing agent's duty is more to the listing, and I've seen listing agents and buyer's agents who represent both sides taking advantage of the other side, adding the home inspection period to an extremely long period of time so they can cancel any time, just doing different things in the contract.
Negotiating tactics.
Just doing different things that really aren't in the best interest of the other party. And I've seen that and have to help people with it because they didn't have anyone representing themselves. So your biggest investment ever, not having someone representing yourself, I think that would be a disservice to first-time home buyers or people that can't afford the buyer's agent commissions.
And right now, you just have to understand, right now, home affordability is at an all-time high.
Yeah, it's crazy right now.
So not only should a buyer be prepared to purchase a home that they can afford, but now a buyer is going to be forced to not only be able to afford a home, but they also have to be able to afford representation because of this lawsuit that just came into play, which makes home affordability much, much more difficult now that this has gone into place. Because before it was all set up in a way where anybody could technically purchase a home, but with this added expense, it's just another hurdle for buyers, which will ultimately hurt sellers. So it's a cyclical effect. But other than that, you'll see on our next video, we'll go over buyer
Buyer's burgers,
buyer
we'll
broker
do some role plays.
Yep.
All right, take care everyone. Bye-bye.